take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. And join us on our quest for 5,000 subscribers before the NFL draft. We're getting pretty darn close, and I can't wait for that to happen. And also, if you haven't already, guess what? We can celebrate. The draft guide is out now. You can look down in the description and you can find your own copy of the draft guide. But also keep this in mind, I'm going to be updating this a lot. I actually already have updates out there. I'm going to be updating the defensive end big board that I have. So make sure that you just got to have that as your bookmark favorites, and you can have that. And also, just as a reminder, this is free. As a big thank you to all of you and just all the support that you have given me this year. Just wanted to do something nice for you all. And here is a free draft guide with all of my different graphics that I use and just kind of player profiles. Right now, I think it's up to 80 player profiles, but we'll be getting over 100. Don't you worry about that for sure. But today, we're not necessarily going to go too far into the NFL draft. We are going to be talking about more than news. It's going to be a news day today, and we're going to be talking about who has been in Halas Hall, and also we're going to be talking about how the Stephon Diggs trade has brought up a lot of questions on what the Bears might do at that number 9 pick. And then I want to hear your opinions out there, those that are watching on YouTube. I'm curious what your thoughts are about what they might do with that number 9 pick with the whole Stephon Diggs thing going on after he was traded to the Texans. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the actual biggest news that was happening with the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams having dinner with the Chicago Bears. Ian Rappaport reported potential number 1 overall pick. USC's Caleb Williams made his top 30 facility visit to the Chicago Bears today. Sources say he was in town for dinner last night as well, likely his only visit as Chicago hones in, is what Ian Rappaport said, and everybody highlights likely his only visit. And also, there was even more reports out there that Caleb Williams had, during that dinner, he also had it with some other teammates from the Chicago Bears that were currently there, and just so that they could understand, okay, this is the potential quarterback of the future. How does he vibe with the coaching staff? How does he vibe with his teammates as they sit down? And does he get the stamp of approval? So it's pretty exciting. And I kind of like to think about who would they have at that dinner table? I mean, you definitely have to have DJ Moore for sure. Bayless was actually all the way down with Justin Fields. So Bayless wasn't there. But my guess is it's probably Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, maybe even like a Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright. I could see Darnell Wright. Tevin Jenkins would be awesome there too. But maybe a lot of the people that were there at the Bulls, or I think it was the Cubs game or the Bulls game, they were all sharing a box together. And it was DJ Moore, Jatyree Carter, who probably wouldn't be sitting down and having dinner with them, but then Tevin Jenkins and Cole Kmet. So yeah, I think that especially those 3 I could see there and just really kind of sit down and talk to Caleb Williams and see what's going on. But it's just more and more and more looks like he is going to be the guy, like we've said. So I'm hoping now we'll probably not see another top 30 visit from Caleb Williams. And I feel like the Bears are just going to give him his reassurance that he would be the number 1 pick, if anything. I'm curious if we're actually going to hear something or not. Is it going to be like what Jake Long when with the Dolphins or whoever, whenever we knew that he was going to be the number 1 pick? But let's carry on and talk about wide receivers, because someone else is going to be out there in Chicago as well, and that's Rome Odunze, which had some people out on Twitter going, well, maybe did Rome have some dinner with the Chicago Bears? My guess, probably not, but that would be awesome if he did. But Washington's wide receiver, Rome Odunze, a likely top 10 pick and one of the draft's best wide receivers, visited the Jets today, sources say, and he has the Bears tomorrow. So he's meeting with the Bears tomorrow on Thursday and obviously met with the Jets today. So that's where, when you hear what Rappaport actually had to say, yeah, he's probably not having dinner, flying out to New York, then going back to the Bears, but also spent some time with the Giants, so just another team to watch out for. But I also want to talk about this because Brad Biggs, I like to always bring up a lot of the people that are plugged in, the Courtney Cronins, the Brad Biggs, and all the other people that are truly plugged into the Chicago Bears. I've already talked about it where Courtney Cronin has mentioned to her, it feels like the Bears will go offense at number 9. And Brad Biggs today in his article and the Chicago Tribune also echoed that same sentiment. He said adding Turner or Verse would really amp up the Bears' front 7, right? Both defensive ends. I'm a little skeptical both will be available at 9. I think the Bears might be leaning offense, either a wide receiver or an offensive tackle. And that's from Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune, which I thought that was really fascinating. Here's another person that understands a lot of what the Chicago Bears are thinking and saying, hey, they're probably going to go offense. And we hear more and more, like what Matt Eberflus is saying, picking up another blue player is what he was really talking about. And what that kind of leads me to is an Olu Fashanu, Fashanu. I need to pronounce his name correct. Fashanu, it's weird saying that, but he is what a lot of people saw as a blue chip prospect. And then like we discussed, kind of fell down some draft boards, a good left tackle. But then Rome Odunze, some do have that kind of blue chip tag on him. I have him in my elite category as a wide receiver. I don't have the official blue chip, but he's pretty darn close. I think he's the number 6 overall prospect right now, and he's even higher up than, say, a Joe Alt. Joe Alt, to me, is a blue chip left tackle, though, out there because he's just phenomenal out of Notre Dame. But it really does feel like Rome Odunze will be a Chicago Bear. It feels that way. So now, let's talk about the Stefon Diggs trade, and I want to bring up why this might be a scenario that moves Rome Odunze away. And this is where there was a lot of chatter on Twitter because of the Stefon Diggs trade. And for those that don't know, Stefon Diggs traded over to the Houston Texans for next year's second-round pick. So now the reason why that all this chatter was going on is if you look at the Bills' depth chart, they have Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and Justin Shorter. Now, they don't really have a true number 1 wide receiver. They don't have this elite wide receiver that they want to pair up with their quarterback. So that got a lot of people talking, and this popped up a lot, where back in 2011, the Atlanta Falcons traded up for Julio Jones, which was the number 6 pick overall. And what they gave up to the Browns, they gave up their 2011 first-round pick and their second and their fourth that year. And I believe their first pick that year was like 26 or 27. And then next year's first-round pick and next year's fourth-round pick. So it got a lot of people saying, well, what about the Bears? Because if the Bears were to trade up, this is a similar scenario. Rather than going all the way up to 6, someone would be going up to 9 to then essentially they would be ideally looking for a Rome Odunze or a Malik Neighbors, one of these top-tier wide receivers. And then what I did is I just kind of removed some of the extra little pieces, some of those fourth-round picks, because they're going to 9 rather than 6. I said, well, the Bears would receive, and this is actually favored towards the Bears if you throw this into a simulator. This is actually more draft value for the Bears. I just want there's more premium that is going to the Chicago Bears side. So the Bears would give up the number 9 pick for Rome Odunze, and the Bears would receive the 28th pick overall, the 60th pick overall, and a first-round pick in 2025 from the Buffalo Bills. So my question to you, the people, would you do this trade? Because would you trade away from Rome Odunze and get the 28th pick and get the 60th and also get a first-round pick in 2025? Now, my first impression of this, when I see this, is 28 is really far back. Really far back. A lot of the people that we're talking about that the Bears could potentially get will not be there. And I know that we talk heavily about defensive line. A lot of those defensive linemen would not be able to last until 28. And then at 60, you're not really up super high. So you're not getting, yet again, some of the other people that we were talking about. But let's actually just go through who they might be able to get at 28 and 60 just to get a better idea. Because when you look at 28, a lot of times when we've been doing trade backs, we've been going to 15, we've been going to 18, and we usually say you can get one of the defensive linemen. Well, if you look at defensive line and you see like a Byron Murphy, he's the 18th overall prospect, projected to go 19th overall. And then Johnny Newton, he might be the 27th prospect, but he's projected to go 23rd. He could always slide, he could always go a little bit farther, but that's where he's projected to go right now based on consensus, right? None of this stuff is set in stone, but D tackles, maybe Johnny Newton falls, but then the next closest person is Braden Fisk, the quick defensive tackle out of Florida State, who's projected to go 35th. He's the 45th overall prospect. And then you look at defensive ends. Laiatu Latu has been kind of dropping, and he's projected to go 26 to the Buccaneers, even though he's the 16th overall prospect, so that might be an option. But I think about the defensive ends. The Bears just had Chop Robinson in, and I think that's where it kind of like fits, where if the Bears want a defensive end, Chop Robinson most likely would be there. He's projected to go 27th overall. And then the next player, Darius Robinson, the defensive end out of Missouri. He's a very large, flexible, like he reminds me a lot of DeMarcus Walker, where he's this bigger defensive end that can play in and out, and 33rd overall prospect, projected to go 29th. So to me, I feel like you could at least get a defensive end at that pick. Defensive tackles most likely would be off the board. If you look at offensive tackles, Amarius Mims out of Georgia, who's kind of a project tackle, might be there. But then you have Tyler Guyton and Jordan Morgan. I like Jordan Morgan, but none of those players to me are upgrades over, say, a Braxton Jones at the tackle position. But then last but not least, interior lineman, maybe Jackson Powers Johnson is still there, everyone's favorite center from Oregon. Graham Barton, who actually has visited the Bears with the top 30 visit. The interior offensive lineman out of Duke might be there as well, 26 overall prospect. He's also a very flexible tackle, guard, and people are even saying he could play center. And then also, Zach Frazier would be there, but I think that's a little high for him. So it really just goes to, you're probably, if you trade back to 28, you're probably landing one of the defensive ends, or you're probably landing a wide receiver, where Adonai Mitchell is actually the favorite to go at 28, the wide receiver out of Texas. Very, very silky route runner. I have questions about how he kind of took some reps off a little bit. And if you look at the stats, it's not good. But if you look at the numbers and watch some of the tape, the dude knows how to run some routes. But his consistency was his biggest negative on him. And then Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas, the speedster, would probably be there too. Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver out of Georgia. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. Troy Franklin, wide receiver, Oregon. So you're really kind of getting your take at wide receiver, besides Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU, probably wouldn't be there. So let me know, does this make sense? Because if I'm doing this, I think at 28, I would like to go with the defensive end. I think that Chop Robinson fits a lot of what the Bears would like. Same thing with like a Darius Robinson. Latu would be my first selection. Wide receivers, though, yet again, would be interesting. But if you go over to the 60th pick, this is where, like I was saying, the talent really does kind of drop off. It's not in the I feel in the 50s you could get a lot more talent, but if you look around, the only interior linemen that you're seeing are guards like Christian Haynes and Cooper Beebe. Both guys I like, but I wouldn't want to invest that high in a guard per se. Offensive tackles, Patrick Paul and Karan Ameji might be there as well. Two different tackles, one from Houston, one from Yale. Defensive tackles, Ruka Rororo and Michael Hall Jr. Yet again, not in love with those players by any means. And defensive ends, yet again, you might land like a Braylon Trice out of Washington, maybe a Marshawn Nealand out of Western Michigan, or a Brandon Dorless out of Oregon. But ultimately, to me, this is a wide receiver spot. Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida, might be there. Roman Wilson out of Michigan. Devontae Walker, Malachi Corley, Jalen Polk, and also Jermaine Burton. And so if you really do just look at what people project like the Bills to take. It's really the Ricky Pearsall and also Adonai Mitchell are kind of who they're projected to get. So if I'm able to get Ricky Pearsall, and let's just say the Bears are able to get Chop Robinson and Ricky Pearsall and a first-round pick next year for Rome Odunze, is that worth it to you? Let me know down in the comments. Do you believe that? Where if the Bears had Chop Robinson, Ricky Pearsall, and that first-round pick next year. Now, the first-round pick is enticing because I think about next year and you go, okay, so you're saying we have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a third? And we've seen what Ryan Poles was able to do with seconds. He likes to trade those for other draft capital. It's a very enticing offer. To me, though, I'm questionable about it just because, like I mentioned, it is a little bit late for me. And also, too, if the Bears feel like right now, it just feels like Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams, and you just kind of vibe with that core. That's something to me that if everyone is vibing and everybody's on the same wavelength and you're like, this is going to just be an incredible wide receiver room, I say go for it. And I've been very adamant to say, you can draft wide receivers later on. You can draft them in the 3rd. You can draft them in the 4th and get some production out of them. You don't need an elite player. But Keenan Allen's up there. And if you already have 3 great wide receivers, 2 really great tight ends, that is a crazy, crazy type of offense that's out there. Like I said, though, let me know, would you do it down below in the comments? It's just a fun little thing for us to think about. Hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to like and subscribe, though, as we go for our quest for 5,000. And also, click the link down below. Open up the free draft guide. See what I have out there. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that she's a